Hello everyone, welcome to our Circular Office webinar. Thank you very much for joining us, and apologies for keeping you waiting a little while longer, but we had just a small technical hiccup with one of our presenters, which I think should be sorted now, so it's all okay. Hope everyone can hear me okay. I think we've had a couple of issues with some of you coming through with my name. I think maybe that was my fault for sending through the link yesterday, which I think was potentially personalized. So you're welcome to rename yourself in the participants box. It's just a sort of, I think there's an option for more, and it gives you an option for renaming. So just so we're, there's not about 5 of me for some reason. So we'll get going. I'll be your host for today. So, just could ask everyone to keep yourself on mute while the presenters are speaking. There will be an opportunity to sort of chat live later on, but we encourage everyone that if you have any comments, feedback or questions during the session, please use the chat box from the toolbar at the bottom. You know, that will be recorded as well alongside the session itself, so your comments won't get lost, and we'll the host will continue to review it as well to sort of feedback as we go along. So the programme we've got ready for today, somebody else is joining us, is a brief sort of welcome introduction from myself, and we'll then move on to some lessons from the business, where our presenters will sort of tell you a bit about kind of how they've implemented circularity in their workplaces from a kind of buyer and supplier point of view, and also the role that the procurement plays in accelerating circular economy. And we'll have an opportunity for a bit of a Q&A as well. And then we'll move over to you guys to get you to do a bit of an interactive session on thinking about what changes you could make in your own workplaces. And we'll finish off with kind of discussing how we could be helping you to commit to action and engage with us further after this workshop. So as a means of introduction, my name is Bella Raposa, which some of you bear my name today as well on Zoom, it seems. I'm a circular procurement project manager in Zero Waste Scotland, and I manage a European circular procurement project with my colleague Claire Guerin, who's a sector manager for sustainable procurement. And we also have Vaso Macri with us today, who's a manager in circular Tayside, which is one of Zero Waste Scotland's circular cities and regions. And I'll pass you over to my colleague Claire just now, who will tell you more about the Circular Procurement European project, which is where Circular Office initiative has really come from. So I'll stop my screen, pass over to Claire.
Hi everyone, can everyone see the screen okay? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so as Spella was saying, myself and Spella work on ProCirc, which is a Interreg North Sea region part-funded project. So we applied for with a number of other partners, and I'll take you through just in brief what the project's about and what we're doing at the moment. No. Great, it's working. Okay, so there's 11 partners involved in the project in 6 countries. They all, as you can kind of see on the screen, they all kind of surround the North Sea region. And we are all focusing on using procurement as a key enabler to embed circular economy principles in an organisation. We have a particular sectoral focus. Across the partners, we're supporting procurement projects in the areas of construction, infrastructure, furniture, ICT and textiles. Textiles in particular, this I mean workwear, so uniforms, etc., carpets, the types of textiles and furnishings you may find in an office environment. So on the kind of right-hand side of me, you can see the list of partners there. There are 2 partners in the UK, ourselves, and also business in the community, who have a membership network of about 450 businesses, and they're very much involved in helping to support businesses to embed circular economy principles. There are sort of 3 principal work packages that we're involved in, which I'm going to talk through in the next slides, and that's the Circular Procurement Toolkit, the development of a toolkit of resources and a roadmap, the pilot projects which are receiving mentoring support to embed, to test out and embed circular economy principles from procurement strategy all the way through to tendering, evaluation, contract award and contract management. And then there's also a segment on building up and supporting communities of practice, which is much what this webinar is about. This is one of the community of practice activities for the Circular Office. So looking at the Circular Procurement Toolkit, this has been led by one of our partners, Circular Flanders, who have run a very successful 3-year program in Belgium, helping to bring public and private sector organisations together to support buyers and suppliers to embed circular economy products and services in organisations. And they have a number of case studies from these successful collaborations, and that project's just there. Circular Flanders project's just ended, and they've done a reflective report on that, and now they're involved in the ProCirc project and helping to support new pilots through that. The idea is we'll bring together a survey, review tools, create guidance, and create metrics to enable you to monitor and measure what embedding circularity of your organisation is doing in terms of reducing waste, reducing virgin materials, and reducing your carbon footprint as well. Moving on to the pilots, and this is one of the kind of key reasons for doing the webinars today as well, is to look for new pilots. We're currently supporting 9 pilots in Scotland. Some are with local authorities, some are with centres of procurement expertise, and some are with individual organisations of a variety of scales. The common aim is that we're looking at one of those sectoral areas I was talking about before. We're focusing on a procurement project in one of those areas, and we're looking for a reduction in raw materials waste and carbon dioxide as a result. And so very much this is to build up a number of pilots, at least 30 across the 11 partners, that we can all learn from, that are scalable and replicable, and we can share the insights and learning. I talked about communities of practice, of which this is one of the events. We are forming across, as the partners are forming a total of 10 communities of practice across the 6 countries. And the idea is we'll all be connected together through an online platform to share knowledge and best practice. In Scotland, we're really focusing on the circular office concept, which you'll hear a lot more about in this webinar. But we're also looking at connecting businesses and organisations involved in construction together as well, to look at circular construction. And that's all for me for now, and I'll pass you back over and stop sharing. Okay, thank you. If you have any particular questions, just put them in the chat section and I can pick those up as we go along.
It would be good if I muted myself. Thank you, Claire. So to continue on, obviously we're here to talk about circular office, but before I sort of just touch upon a bit the circularity principles in the workplace, I have produced a kind of short poll for you guys, because we're interested to see how familiar is everyone with the concept of circular economy. So you should be able to see a poll pop up on your screen. Yeah, let me know if you please unmute yourself if for some reason you can't see that. But I'm getting the answers through already, so I presume it's working well. Yeah, just rate your answer on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not so familiar and 5 being super comfortable with the concept and the familiarity of it. So just wait till we get all the votes through. Yes, this is looking very good. Everyone seems to be pretty comfortable with it. For anyone with that has maybe rated on a lower number, we hope that after this webinar and maybe future engagement with us, you could be rating yourself higher up. So just end it there, and I'll share this with you guys. There you go. You can see that almost half, or well over than half, really is the kind of higher number. So everyone's pretty good on the circular economy. It's great. Move on. So circular office. Just a simple kind of recap, I suppose you will be familiar with this, is what is this sort of shift from linear to circular economy? Well, we know the linear economy is a kind of straight conveyor belt, if you like, from a kind of take, make and waste process where we're using a lot of virgin resources, we're kind of making them into products, and manufacturing is kind of quite sort of centralized, and then we're using those, and more often than not we are disposing them at the end of their use life, rather than doing something better with them. So a lot of the stuff ends up in landfill, and it's not very sustainable, and it overall just results in a lot of waste. Recycling has been around for a long time. We're all pretty comfortable with it, and it does play a role in circular economy, but it essentially still ends up in large volumes of waste at some point. So really, we should be moving towards a circular economy where we're trying to make do better with the value of those resources, and through the likes of recycling as well, but more so through reusing, remanufacturing, repurposing, and obviously kind of trying to take out different business models that would enable us to do that, to really prevent waste as much as possible and where possible. So why do we want to start with looking at a circular office, or circularity in our workplaces? Well, there's some staggering statistics available, that sort of touch upon how much it costs in UK alone for disposal of office waste, and how much we could be saving, per organisation in terms of getting employees to reduce the waste that they produce. And also, we need to remember that the offices that we are so used to having there for us, we're actually not using them more than we're actually there. So the utilisation is quite low overall. So we should be using those spaces as effectively as efficiently as we possibly can. And in terms of the circularity in our workplace, there's various sort of stages, if you like, that we can look at how we can implement circularity. So if we're talking about design, we want to make sure that it's flexible and adaptable. If we're looking to construct sort of new buildings for offices or even refurbishment, we want to make sure that the process is is not wasteful as much as possible, and the materials are responsibly sourced, and components can be are durable and they're easy to repair. When we're using our offices, we want to be kind of rethinking the demand and procurement, and really using the office space as efficiently as possible, as well as the resources within it. And then if we come, if our office spaces come to the end of their use life, for whatever reason, and we'll move on to disassembly, we want to make sure that we recover as much of the materials and components as possible, that they can be put to reuse, and even repurposed in either other organizations or even industries. So circular office, as kind of Claire has touched on a bit, has come from our collaboration with business in the community. And what we're trying to do in Scotland is really create communities of practice in different regions across Scotland, to bring businesses together and sort of everyone to learn from each other and share ideas, and kind of create, try and sort of create a more circular workplace together. And to get you started on that, we have a set of fantastic presenters today. We're still having a couple of issues with one of our presenters, but she's last one on, so hopefully we'll sort it out by then. But we'll start off with John from Kinross Wooden Products and Sam from NDG Group after him, who will tell us a bit more about kind of lessons from their business before Barbara takes over and tells you a bit more about the role that the procurement plays in accelerating circular economy. I'll pass you over to John. You okay, John? Oh, I'll just mute you. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fine. Okay, thanks very much indeed. I'll just move into the share screen mode. And also, hopefully you should be able to hear this fine, because there's a video that runs in this for about 2 minutes, and hopefully it should pop up. It certainly worked on the trial runs that we've done. So thanks very much indeed. It's nice to chat to everyone virtually. So my name's John Ross. I'm the Operations Director at Kinross Wooden Products Company. I have been involved in the office furniture industry now for the best part of 30 years. The last 20 of those very much within the circular economy model. And probably before it was known as a circular economy, we were doing work in that field. So what we're going to look at is something we've been doing for 20 years, looking at furniture management for local authorities and larger multi-site organisations. I've been asked to talk for about 20 minutes, and what I'll do is I'll go through 6 key points. One is a little bit of the background to the work and give it some context. Then we'll have a look at the operational model we've been using since the early 2000s. We'll look at some of the client benefits that we found have come back. I'll talk a little bit about the office furniture market and the economic factors that influence our business making decisions. Some of the practicalities that we found over the last 20 years that you need to bear in mind, and then a little bit about implementation for public sector bodies who are looking to implement this across their organisation. I think the format is questions will get typed into the chat room and we'll address them at the end. As I say, there's a video fairly early on which runs for about 2 minutes, which was made by Perth and Kinross Council. Hopefully the sound will work on that, but we'll address it as we come. Okay, a little bit about the background. I'll put the context. Kinross Wooden Products Company was created in 2019 for a very specific reason in terms of developing a scalable model. I'll come on to that in a little while. But most of the work we did started out through a company called Ogilvy Ross, which is a consultancy company my wife and I started in the 90s, specifically looking at the office furniture impact within the public sector and large organisations. So the early stuff, all of the intellectual property now sits within Wooden Products. But I'm going to talk about things that originally had the badge of Ogilvy Ross on them as we go through. So our initial conversations in early 2000s were very much based around sustainability, supply chains for stewardship council, change of custody, that type of thing. But we started having conversations about what happened with the surplus furniture. And we did that with a number of local authorities. Perth and Kinross Council were the first ones to say, okay, let's see if we can come up with something. So we were commissioned to come up with a new type of furniture management program for them, specifically for the Environment Services Department. The key driver was to try and reduce furniture waste that was going to landfill at that time. But also if we could save money, that was an added benefit. We ran a 2-year pilot project. In 2005, the council came back with their findings. We presented that to COSLA and the Scottish Government, and what it showed was over the 2-year period, they'd saved at least 50% of what they had originally been spending under contract on office furniture. But more importantly for them, it was just over 95% reduction in waste to landfill. The project itself then went on to win the 2005 Scottish Waste Industries Environmental Innovation Award. After that, a number of other local authorities and large bodies started to look at what we had been doing. Dundee, Edinburgh, Camden, London Fire Brigade, and Falkirk Council, and Morgan Stanley ultimately in central London, all started to make use of what we were doing. In the case of Dundee and Falkirk, we looked at delivery on a local level through a third sector partnership where we set up a community sector business. And I'll come on to what we found about that as we went on. But by about 2010, it was pretty well established. The furniture management program really started having an impact with large organisations, and people like Scottish Natural Heritage, Forestry Commission, Zero Waste themselves, Keep Scotland Beautiful, WWF, and quite a number of local authorities were now using the program as a way of looking at their furniture, whether it was procuring circular economy product, whether it was looking at how they could manage it better. Round about the end of 2018, we started to see a shift in the market, and in order to look at how we were going to address that, we created Kinross Wooden Products Company very specifically to look at remanufacturing, and I'll come on to the background of that in a little while. But it was specifically set up to address this issue, whereas previously it had been run as consultancy projects or long-term management projects. So that's a little bit of the development background. If we look at the operational model, this we originally published in 2005, and I'll take you through it. If you look at the squares in the middle of surplus furniture, the assumption is that we're dealing with a single authority, so it's a local authority, large company. They generate surplus furniture, whether it's through moves, building shutdowns, relocations, replacement of product. There was always surplus furniture moving around. And when we started looking at this, the challenge was there was no easy mechanism to reuse that within the organization. Everything was done on an ad hoc basis. Furniture was being stored in multiple different locations, with the best intention being they would reuse it, but there was nothing there that actually made it easy to reuse. So what we created was a coordination planning phase where we would work with the client to actually understand what we could do with that product. And we were then able to identify products coming out of one building that could be used in a different building in 6 or 12 months' time. But also at that coordination and planning phase, we would undertake the site work when the product was being removed. And from that, we could identify product that quite simply had no potential for reuse. If you've got a 30-year-old broken 4-drawer filing cabinet with no locks, handles have come off, it's rusted and dented, nobody is going to take that back into reuse. It's just not economic to do. So at that phase, we would identify where material recycling was the most practical option and divert it straight from site. So it doesn't go into storage, it went straight for metal recycling. But any of the other product would then come back to our facilities. It's initially inspected, and we have 3 grades of inspection. A category A product is suitable for reuse exactly as is. Might need to be cleaned, but basically that product could be used somewhere else. It would be dismantled, flat packed, ready for storage, but it could be then categorized as suitable for reuse as is. Category B products may require some minor repair refurbishment. There might be missing parts, a chair might be missing an arm, or it might be missing casters, a desk possibly, cable ports are missing, or it just needs an edge re-glued. So category B would have an amount of work, and then it would be allocated into stock for reuse. And finally, you have category C. This is product that is damaged, broken, no longer fit for use, and that will be stripped for materials. And those materials would then be used to go back into a manufacturing process so that we can make new products from it. And once you've done that, you then have your stock holding, which is warehouse management, so you keep things in the right place, you know what it is. And that, with delivery and logistics, feeds back into coordination and planning so that we're working with the client who can then say, right, we have a requirement for 25 workstations, some storage and meeting room and various bits and pieces. We know it exists in stock, we know it's now in category A, and it can then go back into the same client as reused furniture, thereby closing the loop for that client. And in the case of Perth and Kinross Council, for the last 18, 19 years we've been doing it, some of that furniture has rotated through the system 4 or 5 times in 20 years. And it will continue to go back into reuse as soon as it comes out of a building. And that applies to other clients we have as well. But we also opened it up to say that we now have some very high quality product remanufactured or reuse as is, and we're able to sell that product into third sector organizations or third parties. What I'll do now is show you the video. Hopefully this will work, and you should be able to hear it through the computer's own toy. It lasts for about 2 minutes. It was made by Perth and Kinross Council, specifically looking at the furniture reuse project.
The Furniture Reuse Initiative has transformed the way that Perth and Kinross Council uses existing furniture and acquires new furniture. Any furniture which becomes surplus in council buildings is stored and redistributed to other areas of the council to save on disposal costs and minimizing the need for new furniture. The policy is not only helping the council to reduce its environmental footprint, but has also enabled significant savings to be made. In 2009 and 10, the council's bill for furniture was £292,904. But in 2013-14, it is set to be reduced to around £33,000.
We hardly send anything to landfill whatsoever, but also the savings to the council in not having to buy new furniture, and that has resulted in considerable savings to the council.
If we're aware of a large project that's coming up within Perth and Kinross Council that the stock doesn't exist here or in the other facilities, we're able to tap into a larger network of providers who are looking at the reuse network, so that, for example, the most recent project where we needed 110 workstations, we actually linked in with one of the major utility companies who are making a disposal of furniture that was the right size, and we were able to coordinate that their product was then reused by the council.
So really what we're doing here is storing the furniture that we take out of offices, and we will reuse that wherever we can, and that is our first port of call, is our reuse stock.
Well, hopefully everyone was able to hear that. In summary, looking at the benefits to the client, typical savings of 20 to 50% against normal contract procurement costs of what we found over the last 20 years. That's both on management and disposal. Significant reduction in waste, increased resource efficiency throughout the organisation, particularly when it's a managed programme and you're building repair and refurbishment, so that a chair with a broken caster is no longer thrown out, it's just simply repaired. It builds a sustainable procurement process, and all of the clients at the moment use this as a way of monitoring their environmental performance indicators. One of the outputs we generate at the end of a project is to provide the client with a detailed audit in terms of materials recycled or reused by both tonnage, but also we're now working with Scottish Enterprise and a couple of other people to generate a full carbon footprint report that goes back telling me exactly what's been impacted. As I mentioned earlier, Kinross Wooden Products came about because we identified a change in the market. If we look at 2001 up to 2018, most of the work was actually based on reusing as is. We would take a product out, and the standard desk size in the public sector and large organisations was 1800 by 1200 corner desk. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. These were designed in the 1980s for both 19 and 21-inch cathode ray monitors to sit on a desk to meet the ergonomic requirements of the VDU directive. They're very, very large footprint. You don't get as many into a building as you do with a smaller desk. But from 2001 to 2018, that really wasn't the major issue. People were quite happy to simply have us stock holding that product and put it back in. And all we had to do was to provide the coordination of planning. As 2018 moved on, we started to recognise that this was going to change very quickly, and actually the product that was coming out of public sector buildings was no longer the product that they were going to put back in. Quite simply, they needed smaller desks. People were moving to flat screen monitors, laptops, iPads, a complete new way of working driven by technology, and very large footprint desks that wrapped around the user were no longer going to meet the space requirements they needed for the buildings. So what we had to start looking at there was a completely new driver, which is fully remanufacturing. So the product comes out, it is stripped back to its core materials, edges taken off, the desk is then cut and manufactured to a new size, and we needed to provide an enhanced coordination planning and logistical support. Ogilvy Ross couldn't do that as a project company, but Kinross Wooden Products had the opportunity to set up its own manufacturing facility and do that, which is what we did in 2019. If we look at the economics behind this, it starts to explain a lot of the rationale. So I'm going to look at the cost of a remanufactured straight desk, a 1600 by 800 standard desk. The desk materials for us to make that new product actually not only don't cost us money, but we've already made a profit by taking them out of the client's office. There's a cost for them. It's less than any other disposal costs. And it works out about £7.50 to uplift a desk, take it from their floor, transport it, and bring it back to us. By the time we've processed it, it actually has made a £3 profit. So it's sitting in our warehouse with a £3 profit already attributed. To turn that 1800 desk into a 1600 desk takes about 10 minutes. It's a manual process. There's not a huge amount of automation. We use track saws, and it will get 1 or 2 cuts on a track saw once the edge has been removed and then re-edged. And our manufacturing cost for that is, as it says there, £6.67. So the net cost to manufacture or remanufacture a new desk for us is just below £4, and that's allowing for glue, replacement saw blades, and the various consumables that go in the manufacturing process. To be delivered back to site is about £7.50. So the total installed cost for us for a desk sitting in an office floor is approaching £11.50. Now, we sell those desks for £65, making ourselves a very healthy margin that goes in there. And that then covers all the warehousing costs and running the building, paying salaries and all the other things that we have to do. If you look at the brand new out of a box desk, the typical contract price for that desk in the public sector is about £75. That makes about £9.50 for the actual supplying dealer. One of the things to point out is about 80% of the furniture that meets that technical requirement going on these contracts is now manufactured in China. It may be assembled in the UK, but actually the product itself, the component parts, are made in China and shipped in about 80% of cases. And that £75 represents somewhere between 4 and 5 organisations that need to actually apply a margin to it. So the original factory has a margin. The agent shipping it out has a margin. The agent in the UK taking in has a margin. They will sell it through a wholesaler who applies a margin, and it finally goes to the dealer who has a margin. What you've actually got is the product itself in a box has a factory gate price of somewhere between £10 and £13. So the product is not a hugely expensive product to make, but by the time everyone's handled it and shipped it from China through to here, and a huge carbon footprint, it makes a lot of sense to buy circular economy products that have actually been remanufactured locally. When you look at that, you might think, well, great, why isn't everyone actually doing this? A number of people have tried. What I'm going to talk about is the actual practicalities. Having done this for a very long time, one of the things that I constantly come across is people seem to think that because you are circular or green or environmentally friendly, you will automatically generate orders just because you are. The reality is that does not happen. The simple fact is you have to provide a higher level of service than the new providers. And what we found is there are very good reasons for that. As soon as you start talking about green or circular products, there is a perception these are second-hand, probably inferior, they may well be poor quality. One of the biggest challenges I have when I'm talking to a potential new client is when they say, oh, do you upcycle? Their perception of upcycle when I question them about it is we take the product, give it a lick of paint, stick a cushion on it and say, there we are. They don't seem to appreciate that what we're talking about is actually a fully manufactured product, complete with warranties that are very comparable with new. And it is, at the moment within the public sector, a challenge to get around that. We've been doing it profitably for 20 years, but the fact is it's still very much a challenge. And many people think that simply because you're green or circular, people will buy into it. The reality is you have to go way beyond the client's expectations to win trust in the product. It is remarkably easy for public sector or large organizations to buy furniture. They have entire departments whose job is to run contracts to enable them to just buy furniture very, very easily. You're asking them to step outside that model and buy something different. You have to build the trust that what you're supplying is fit for purpose, properly warranted, and does the job. It also has to represent really great value, and it's got to exceed all client needs and everything you're looking at. If you don't do that, you're really going to struggle. You've also got to make it very easy to buy. This again, where we've worked with social enterprises to try and get this off the ground, that is often the situation where they think that the client it's totally reasonable that the client will make a lot of compromises in terms of delivery quality because they're a third sector or they're a circular economy. It doesn't work that way. You have to make this as easy to buy as a brand new out-of-the-box product. You've also got to continually adapt. This is not a standing still market. It's constantly changing as we notice. And also, as the supplier, you have to aim to make a profit. We have worked with a number of third sector organizations. We've partnered with them. Generally, they're enthusiastic for the first 2 years because they will have got some form of funding. As soon as they are not guaranteed a 2 or 3 year funding cycle and that they had to survive on the profits they made themselves, they cease to be interested in the program. For this to work, you have to be a profitable business. You have to be able to continually reinvest. For ourselves, just to give an idea of where we are at the moment, because it is a very interesting time, and what we're looking at is kind of the post-COVID world we're in, whatever that may or may not look like. We're developing new products for the small office, home office market, particularly where we can take the materials that are coming out of corporate disposals and remanufacture for something in home use, which will actually be fit for purpose and fit for size. So it will fit specifically the size someone has rather than you buy the nearest to match. We're also developing a whole new range of products for the educational and schools market, where they will have hopefully an entirely new way of buying, where instead of paying for a unit price for a product, they simply pay a quarterly charge to get a lorry load of furniture delivered that meets their budget and gives them access to a whole load more things. We're now, for the first time ever, remanufacturing simply for stock so that we have products for quick call-off. The reality is we expect the market to change and there will be a lot of surplus product coming on the market. The economic downturn that everyone's forecasting generally means people close down offices and get rid of furniture. We want to be ready for that. We're developing and enhancing our planning, logistics and consultancy services so we can help people through this transition. Also, everyone's now comfortable with the idea of Zoom and video conference. So we're developing a range of remanufactured video conference products, as well as a way to refurbish existing facilities to meet new technical requirements without throwing the product away and buying a new table. But we're also looking at the secondary markets. Because we work with the construction industry as well and other aspects of the work we do generate a lot of scrap timber, and we're looking to create secondary markets in the domestic area, gifts, other types of things that can be done. We've made fireplaces from desks and things like that, and we're looking to develop that. So then if we very quickly move on to what does it take to implement, we've worked with a lot of public sector bodies. This has to be a top-down approach. You cannot push this boulder up the hill. There needs to be people at the top saying this is now something they want to embrace and actually deliver. And you need to have your dedicated champions within the organization who are looking to do this. In terms of furniture, you have to have all your relocations and disposals centrally managed. It's almost impossible to do this in an ad hoc fashion where you get a phone call saying we're throwing furniture out tomorrow. Can you take it away because we might need it another day when we don't know when. Where we work well with organizations, we're sitting down with them and talking about 6 to 12 months of time, what we think might happen and where things might be able to be used. It's not a firm commitment, but by doing that, we're able to identify product coming out of building A could well be used partially in building C in 8 months' time. And that allows you to build a platform you can work on. Also, we've had 1 or 2 local authorities in the past who have seen us doing it. It's worked really well and they decided to try and do it themselves. You need to be a specialist in this field. You need to understand the remanufacturing process. You need to have the stock holding, the stock management systems. And my suggestion is you need to outsource that process work rather than the organization try and do it themselves. But also from a procurement point of view, you have to involve your existing suppliers. If you are buying furniture on contract, you need to talk to them and make sure that whatever you're buying has the potential to be disassembled and used in a remanufacturing process at end of life, whether that's 5 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And then just continually feed it and build and improve it. So hopefully that's kind of coming towards the 20 minutes. In summary, we've been doing this now, as I say, for almost 20 years. We can easily point to 20 to 50% reduction in furniture spend for the clients that we work with, massive reduction in waste. By building in the repair and refurbishment aspect so that damaged product is not just simply thrown out because you don't know what else to do with it, you can hugely increase the lifespan. You build a long-term sustainable procurement purchasing system, and you also then improve your environmental performance. Hopefully, that's very much me. Hopefully you all got that one, and I'll move back to the camera.
That's perfect, John. Thank you very much for this presentation of what you're doing. And thank you for taking us through the more technical bits and the more kind of general overview bits. It was very useful. I would like to introduce and welcome our next speaker, Sam Grace from the MDG Group. The MDG Group is based in Perth, and they deal with business consultancy, and they focus on renewable energy. But Sam is coming with his circular office hat on at this webinar today. He's going to be telling us how he's working with his colleagues to implement more circular practices in their operations. So Sam, welcome.
Hi, just sorry, my screen. So that, oh, 2 seconds. My
There we go.
does PowerPoint doesn't seem to be playing though.
If you want to put it into kind of yeah.
I'm trying. It's just coming up saying that it's not responding. Oh, this could be it now. There we go.
Perfect.
Sorry. Right, thank you, Russell. As Pastor said, my name is Sam and I work for MDG Group in Perth. We've only really quite recently started looking at circular economy. So I'm just going to give a short overview of the work that we've been doing, sort of challenges that we've come across, and how we are sort of planning to move forward to help both ourselves and our customers become a bit more circular. So MDG Group, we are business cost consultants specialising in energy, water and telecoms contracts. We work with a range of suppliers to obtain bespoke prices for our customers' utilities, and then manage the whole renewal process for them, sort of sorting any billing disputes and really just helping them to sort of manage their energy usage and understand their consumption before coming up with plans to help them reduce their energy usage. They're obviously saving a bit of money, but also working in a more environmentally friendly way. We work with quite a wide range of businesses, including shopping centres, hotels, farmers, motor dealership groups, golf clubs, and also some smaller businesses like hairdressers, takeaways, and like offices and stuff. And through working with Circular Tayside, our aim is to be in a position ourselves where we're working in such a way that we're well placed to help to promote circular economy to our customers, to help them operate in a more sustainable manner. So we began sort of exploring the idea of circular economy after my colleague Christian and I attended the chamber event at Ogilvy Spirits just in February there. So at the event, Vassal gave sort of a presentation on circular economy, and we had a talk and a tour from one of the farmers at Ogilvy Spirits who it kind of showed us what they were doing. It was really quite beneficial to see practices in action, so that we could see what we could do going forward. We're obviously always looking for ways to sort of improve how we work. So learning more about the circular economy and the impact of sort of adopting some of its practices seemed like a good idea. Since then, Christian and I have attended an ambassadors meeting with Circular Tayside, which has allowed us to learn from like more experienced members and gave us ideas about how we could move forward as a business and help our customers become more circular and cost effective in their work as well. So I sat down, Christian and I, with two of our company directors to sort of look at what we were already doing. And there's actually some practices and setups that we didn't realise we had in place that are quite pertinent to circular economy. So firstly, we share office space with two other small businesses. We all have separate rooms with one shared boardroom, but the three of us all work in the same building, which obviously means there's lower gas, electricity and water consumption rate than if the three businesses use separate buildings. This results in sort of more efficient energy consumption, so there's lower emissions, waste and wastewater per unit of energy used. And then we also share materials across the business. So we have just one printer in the building, and other materials such as stationery, rather than everybody having sort of their own set of like staplers and so on. We found this probably wasn't necessary to have, and in reducing the use, you're consequently reducing the amount of products that are being wasted as well. As I touched on with printing and so on, we have sort of a centralised printing station policy to sort of make sure that you are only printing material that must be printed, and all our processes and file storage are held electronically, which is obviously really simple, but that reduces the amount of paper that we use and waste quite significantly. And in addition to what we had already been doing ourselves, some of the advice that we give to our customers is helping them to work more circularly without sort of putting a term on it as such. So helping them with renewable energy source decisions, and like just simple things like helping them to install smart meters to track usage and cut consumption, or like replacing boilers so that they can run more efficiently, meaning they can then report heat then is lost, resulting in sort of more sustainable energy usage. And also obviously LED lighting, excuse me, LED lighting has a massive impact on the amount of energy lost to heat compared with normal light bulbs. So after attending the event at Ogilvy Spirits, we took some initial steps into implementing circular economy. I started researching it in greater detail and wrote a report to outline the key objectives, requirements, advantages and difficulties in implementing it within a business. As I said, this was just in February, so just before we sort of started working from home, so we're probably not as far along in the implementation stage as we'd like to be. But I was able to distribute the report around the team. There's only 11 of us in the office, so it was quite easy to speak to everybody, get opinions on it, and hold just a small workshop so that we could discuss and sort of get a list of questions that we wanted answered, and that I could help then go and maybe research in a bit greater detail. We had decided that it was quite important for us to establish and correct our own behaviours before obviously speaking to our customers about circular economy, and just sharing it with the whole team. Christian and I did lead the session, but sharing it with the whole team, it really helped with sort of idea generation and to see exactly where we were in relation to being able to take circular economy forward. A few weeks ago as well, I took part in a webinar that was run by Resource Efficiency Scotland, offering Green Champions training. This focused on providing skills and tools to improve resource efficiency and environmental performance in businesses. And it looked at 3 specific areas, which were identifying cost savings and environmental improvement opportunities, effectively collecting and analysing data, and being able to instigate change. The Green Champions training is not strictly linked to circular economy, but I found that there were a few useful overlaps with a similar end goal of working in a more sustainable and environmentally conscious manner, which is obviously important for businesses where there are a number of challenges in implementing circular economy, that you have contingencies, other things you're doing to help just general sustainability of your business. I have a background in engineering, and I had touched on restriction of hazardous substances and waste electrical and electronic equipment at university. So I decided to research that a bit further and wrote a short report, just really to find out more about it and see how MDG Group could like utilize the directive to act in a better way as such. So obviously, in line with circular economy, the directive states that it is more favourable to reuse electrical appliances, and that all sort of waste electrical and electronic equipment should be collected separately and sent for recovery, as opposed to just being just thrown away as waste. And finally, and most significantly for our business, we are sourcing green energy from suppliers. as obviously renewable sources are not going to run out, and greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution is reduced when they're used. We have managed some agreements with suppliers, and we'll be rolling out sort of green energy to more of our customers in the coming months. So specifically in the office, we have implemented a few work in progress sort of thing that obviously isn't really happening just now as we're working from home, but moving back in, we'll be looking to take forward. So we have made a conscious decision to significantly reduce plastic use as much as possible. Just simple things like not using single-use bottles or cutlery, and having focused recycling where reuse isn't possible. We found that removing desk bins to like encourage recycling as such is quite beneficial, as it can be easy if you're just sitting at a desk to just throw anything and everything in the bin without actually having to leave. Over the last few weeks, I've obviously participated in a lot of virtual meetings. This is a practice that I think we will be looking to take forward more, as opposed to driving to customers or partners for things that could be done over web calls. It's obviously a lot quicker and more convenient to use, less time lost by traveling for the business, and it's obviously a lot more environmentally friendly. Alongside looking at circular economy, I've also been doing a project on energy monitoring systems. This would help our customers to effectively monitor their energy consumption, give them a clear picture of usage and areas of waste, and then help us devise a plan with them to reduce consumption. Quite a number of services are able to recover waste heat, for example, by converting heat produced by computers into heating, and we would hope this would be highlighted by our energy monitoring systems going forward. As I said, as we're fairly new to circular economy and working with Circular Tayside, I think a big thing for us is to start really promoting circular economy to our customers, and the best way to do this is through our website and social media, which is kind of in the very infancy of doing. And following my research on the ROHS and WEEE directive, we've started to look at how best to repair broken equipment or find places to facilitate this instead of going to landfill, rather than something breaking and sort of just panic of saying we don't actually know what we're doing and inevitably just throwing it out. We have had a lot of challenges in implementing circular economy, not helped by the current situation, of course. So first off, there was definitely a lack of initial understanding and information. I spent quite a while trying to get my head around it with the help of Christian, my colleague, before we went to the rest of our team and our company directors to sort of present. We found that there was quite a few inconsistent information available on the internet, which obviously didn't help. And obviously working from home hasn't helped the process either, as we've not been able to have such interactive training sessions as I would have liked, as I've learned more about it, but I'm sure we'll be able to pick up on this once we get back into the office. And there's also quite a limited practice within our industry that I could find. But then looking at the range of clients that we have in lots of different sectors, we really work to find information that is probably pertinent to different people, and how they can act circularly in their own manners. And following on from that, quite a big other challenge for us is that green energy sources are a lot more expensive than non-renewable sources of energy, which immediately makes it harder for us to promote to our customers who are as much as possible. That then probably puts more focus on us, in that we would then have to work with our customers to devise plans and solutions to help reduce their consumption, which longer term would allow them to save money through reduced use and obviously work in a more environmentally friendly and circular manner. And staying on the theme of renewable sources, it can be unreliable if you're using sort of solar or wind, because you're relying on natural elements and obviously to produce provide your power, and it's obviously not guaranteed day to day, like the weather, how the weather's going to be. So it's important to have reserves. And also, any changes that you're making to your business plan are going to bring like a lot of extra costs to your business, which may initially be off-putting. This is why we've kind of tried to start with small steps like reducing plastic that are quite inexpensive, so that we can build up a greater understanding as we go of circular economy, and really improve the way we're working bit by bit. So the simplest success I would say that we've had in implementing circular economy is that because all of our files are stored digitally, it's made working from home really easy, and there hasn't been a great deal of productivity lost in doing so. We've also had, well, longer term, we will be able to reduce our operational costs as through evaluating and sort of improving our work processes, we were able to pinpoint areas where we could work smarter and more efficiently, and things like sharing of equipment, reducing your paper use, and just being more conscious about generally ensuring you're switching off heating or switching off lights and so on, will obviously help to cut costs and consumption over time. And as we are embedding circular office practices, the opportunity is there for us to promote circular economy to all of our customers as well, which if a large number of people and businesses are getting on board with it, it's obviously going to have a lot more environmental benefits than if just one or two people are taking it on. So looking forward, we have lots more plans to improve our practices and hopefully become more circular in the future, which will obviously be made a lot easier by when we can get back into the office to properly evaluate our progress so far. I think it's important information available on Circular Tayside website, and working with its members and learning from other probably more experienced businesses is an effective way of improving how we're working, and that is how we actually got involved in circular economy in the first place. In additionally, Resource Efficiency Scotland have a number of resources available on their website that I find quite useful in guiding you how to work sustainably. I've downloaded a few guides and I'm waiting on a few being sent to me as well, but I definitely recommend having a look at that if you get the chance. Just sustainability reports to where working tracker efficiency, and this would be quite useful, I think, to monitor. This would be quite useful to monitor our progress and sort of compare how we are performing in terms of like sustainability and circularity compared with previous years or previous stages in the process. We're continuing with our energy monitoring project as well that I mentioned earlier, with the hope that we will then be better placed to help customers to monitor their consumption and reduce their waste through implementing better practices. And I think it is really important that quite soon we do update our website again to reflect more circular economy and more of our circular practices, as I haven't actually had a chance to do this yet, and as I mentioned earlier, increase our social media interaction with our customers and so on. And I've also spoken to directors. We're looking to develop new strategies and ways of working where we can maybe try to lease or share equipment instead of buying them. I'm not entirely sure if or how they get. It is something that we will explore, and if it helps us to become more circular, then it's definitely a bonus. And finally, as a business, we are obviously looking to promote green energy to more of our customers and advise them of the benefits of using it. In theory, a site won't ever use exclusively 100% green energy, but the supplier will purchase enough renewable energy from the network to match consumption. So the net effect is that the site is using 100% green energy. This obviously means that as more customers are buying green energy, this results in a higher percentage being fed back into the national supply, which obvious events for the environment, benefits for the environment. I'm also conscious that there are times when we won't maybe be able to work specifically within the boundaries of circular economy or renewable energy. So I am just starting to look at carbon offsetting because I think it's quite important to determine alternatives to be environmentally conscious and more sustainably. And yeah, finally, as I said earlier, we are looking to get more information and for more research and make connections into sort of being able to repair electrical equipment instead of sending it to landfill, as this is obviously quite under the WEE directive, and this is quite an important thing in operating in a more sustainable and circular manner. I'm conscious that I've kind of zoomed through that really quite quickly, and I probably haven't touched on a lot of the things that you're maybe expecting. But as I say, we're at the very start of implementing circular economy in our business too, and we are still learning too. So if you have any questions or any advice for how we could work better, then my email address is on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was really great and really insightful, and hopefully has provided some ideas and inspiration to others about what where they could start if they've not started already. We will now move on to Barbara Morton, who is a Sustainable Procurement Specialist and a Director of Sustainable Procurement Limited. We've had some technical issues, so we're going to try something new, being innovative and flexible and adaptable, hopefully, bear with us, where I will show her slides and Barbara will talk through them. So I'll put her slides on the screen to get us started, and let's see how this works. Keep them in read mode. And Barbara, are you able to unmute yourself? Or I can unmute you. Right, Barbara, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you, Spella.
Perfect.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, so I would presume that everyone else can hear you too.
Yep.
And
Great.
your my slide of your slide.
Excellent. Thanks for your help.
Perfect.
Perhaps, given the time, if someone would like to give me some advice on how long you would like me to talk for.
We started a bit late, so I mean, if you can do it maybe in 15 minutes, I think that'll be
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll aim for 15. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for the introduction, Spella. And I'll just say a few words about who we are, first of all. Barbara Morton from Sustainable Procurement Limited. We're currently working with Zero Waste Scotland on the ProCirc project. My background is in public procurement, and mostly with the public sector. We've been working with Scottish Government for some years, currently working on climate change and procurement, amongst other things. And I've been a technical advisor to governments and agencies and companies in various parts of the world, Australia, Paraguay, and various places. Next slide, please, Bella, is the outline slide. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. The power of procurement to deliver circular outcomes, really. So I'll talk about circular economy. I'll talk about the power of procurement. Sorry to have missed the early part of this session, but I'd like to pick up on some points about the role of procurement in green recovery. I'm sure that'll prompt some discussion later. I'll be talking about the role of buyers and suppliers in this drive to more circular solutions. And hopefully, time allowing, I'll mostly talk about the case studies. So the next one, Bella, is the one that really is a powerful statistic, I think, on 4/5 of Scotland's carbon footprint being associated with the goods and the materials that we produce, that we consume, and that we often waste. And given that a lot of our work is currently involved with public sector bodies in Scotland, when you think about Scotland in the public sector alone spending £11 billion per annum, something approaching 10% of the entire GDP of the country, that's a significant lever, if you like, in delivering sustainable and circular procurement and driving circular outcomes. Buying in a circular way is key then to reducing demand for resources, cutting carbon emissions, and supporting innovation and investment in circular business models in the supply chain. So the next one shows the circular economy, and at the bottom you'll see the old linear model, if you like, of source it, produce it, sell it, use it, and send it to landfill in a lot of cases. And I want to draw attention to all the other options that we have moving towards more circular alternatives. Repairing goods, sending them back into use through repairing something that can easily be repaired. Reusing it either internally or amongst organisations. I'll say a bit more about that later on. Refurbishing, which is a growing part of the circular economy. Refurbishing, I'll talk about furniture amongst other things. And you'll see where recycling fits in the overall circular economy. There are so many other options that we can deploy before we actually get to recycling. Moving to the next slide then, Stella, translates that into some things that we can do in procurement terms. So it starts with reducing. The question is always, do you really need to buy at all? Do you need to buy new products? Do you need to buy products at all? And so this is about rethinking demand for products and services, thinking about demand management as one of the tactics, if you like, in procurement, challenging need and challenging ways of delivering that need. Could we replace a product with a service is one of the things that many organisations are picking up on. We can talk a bit about that later on. And then options around reuse. So can we use it more than once? Can we use it more than once, or can colleagues or other organisations use it again and again? And can we share resources? We're used to pool cars, we're used to pooling more materials that other people can draw on. When it comes to recycle and recovery, this is where procurement for me really can play a part, because not only do we need to talk to markets about how they can produce products with more recyclability and specify that in our procurement practices, but actually when it comes to both recycling and recovery, it's about, for me, buying back those things that are built with and use recovered or recycled material. So it's properly closing the loop through the procurement process. Moving to the next one, Spiller. This is one of my favorite diagrams, showing the importance of planning in the procurement process. I think this diagram really shows how we procure is just as important as what we procure. So this is about the opportunities that we have, specifiers, internal customers, budget holders, as well as procurers, to talk to markets and to think about what it is that we're going to specify. Because you can see by the time we get to specification, the sustainability gains tailing away, and the degree to which the specifications are fixed. Obviously, at specification stage, you've locked in or out, and hopefully in, the circular opportunity. So you can tell by this fishtail, as I call it, the opportunities are at the front end, and the more we plan our procurement and think about circularity at the early stages, the more it's possible to lock in the most circular solutions. The next one talks about how we do that in some more detail through the procurement process. So here we're talking about the power of procurement in outcome terms, and I think that's one of my key messages for today, is thinking about the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. The outcomes are associated with, when you think about all the products and services that we use, consume resources, generate emissions, sometimes generate waste throughout their life cycle. So this slide is really saying, what can we do in procurement terms to specify a more sustainable outcome? That could be reducing the use of virgin materials. It could be preventing the use of those materials in the first place, especially if they're scarce. It could be increasing recycling. It could be looking at how we manage end of life. So things that we may have no more use for, other people might be able to use. And thereby we're reducing not only the consumption of resources, but the emissions associated with that and environmental damage. And finally, it's not just about the environment. You'll notice on this slide, there's some social value. So local economic development and the opportunities for third sector and other SME suppliers to be involved. That for me is one of the important things about circular economy. It's about social side as well as the environmental. One last point to stress on that slide before I move on is we need to be able to measure and report on those outcomes. So where I've said outcomes are an important part of the power of procurement, increasingly anyone in the public sector will know that we're challenged to report on our progress. Annual procurement reporting becoming much more prominent. We'll all be challenged to report on circularity and what outcomes we've managed to achieve through adopting circular business models. The next one, Spilla, is looking at it from both a buyer and a supplier point of view. Now, where I've got these on the slide in kind of separate boxes, for me, they're part of the same story. They're part of the ambition. We're all in this together, as it were, because we all have common goals when it comes to delivering circular procurement. Obviously, from a buyer's point of view, we want to articulate the intended outcomes. What is it we're trying to achieve? What are we trying to deliver here? Not necessarily in specification terms, but in outcome terms. And that means we have to understand the market's capability and the potential for the market to innovate, maybe using some collaborative procurement along the way. But on the same, by the same token, I think suppliers have a vested interest in understanding the buyer's objectives, the customer's objectives, and offering new circular innovative solutions to be able to deliver on some of those objectives. So I think we should, the more we see this as a common aim and having common goals in common, I think the more opportunities there are for circularity to be embedded. The next slide is quite a busy one. It's about furniture, and it comes from the city of Malmö. And here, all I wanted to do is show that it illustrates a range of options from refurbishment to assessing new products. The fact that different options are available, sometimes from the same supplier. So in the case of furniture, it may be that one supplier is able to offer you new furniture if that is your need. But if you're also interested in refreshed or remade or repurposed or remanufactured furniture, there are people out there who are able to do that for you as well. Exploring the options and understanding what the market can deliver, providing it's fit for purpose and of the appropriate standard, means there's much more that we can actually deliver through using our buying power. And then if we do that collaboratively, the economies of scale kick in. So given the time, I should move on to some of the real life, closer to home examples. So the next slide, Stella, is about the NHS Scotland Furniture Framework, where we talked to the market, doing extensive supplier engagement, prior information notice, survey and workshops, allows people to understand what the market is able to deliver in terms of circularity, and it meant that the weighting in this case could be increased on circularity because the market was able to deliver. But people will only know that if they do their market engagement early. You'll remember my fishtail diagram, the planning of procurement really came home to roost there. Other examples, the next one shows a London example, but I'm using that slide partly because it illustrates so many of the circular procurement opportunities. If we can do this for furniture, then we look around the office, we look around our organisations, and we say, what else could we possibly buy in a more circular way? And this slide illustrates the opportunities that there are from furniture and cabinets through to carpeting, where we've got Interface and Milliken and others providing cradle-to-cradle carpets, providing carpeting solutions, flooring solutions, if you like, that don't involve necessarily ownership of the carpet. Buying a carpet is almost out of date now. The reclaimed timber flooring came from the Royal College of Surgeons in Lincoln's Inn in London, and you can see on the slide other examples, refurbished laptops, mobile phones, AV, and then into doors and kitchen cabinets, carpets and blinds. So it's a case of look around and see where the other opportunities are. My last illustration, my last example, the Scottish Procurement National ICT Framework, fairly substantial one, 250 million over 4 years. This is an example of not all markets being the same. I'm using this as an example of where we have to understand as buyers the nature and the maturity of the marketplace. So for ICT, there is lots going on, and ICT suppliers have been used to delivering circular solutions for some time. This one shows, as you can see on the screen, the range of circular economy outcomes that can be achieved with a range of sizes of organizations in the mix. Remember, earlier I was talking about SMEs, sometimes third sector organizations as well, social enterprises and the rest. So it can involve large manufacturers and resellers, but it can also involve the rest of the supply chain. And from a green recovery point of view, I think it's going to be quite important that we bear the SME agenda in mind. Buyers need to understand the value in the end-of-life devices. That's one of the key messages from this example. Understanding that there is value in end-of-life devices and not assuming that you just want someone to take this off your hands. There is actually inherent value in those pieces of equipment. So HP Enterprise at Erskine, for example, will reuse and refurbish. HP Renew sell refurbished devices, and Circular Computing remanufacture laptops and monitors. So understanding what you want to deliver in outcome terms takes you into a relatively mature marketplace in this case, and offers some opportunities for real circular benefits and benefits to the bottom line. And my final slide, my final example, has some numbers in it. For people who like to see the evidence in front of them, here is an example of the business case analysis for ICT devices, some work we did for Zero Waste Scotland. Looking at, and I'll talk you through the slide, there's quite a lot in here. Obviously, we still need to be thinking about, do you need to buy? Can you lease instead? Can you extend the useful life of the products? Do you really need to buy new? Because sometimes you don't. The baseline scenario was ICT units being purchased new, being collected and managed at the end of their life under a compliance scheme arrangement for retreatment via an approved authorised treatment facility. Standard traditional practice, I'll call it. The second scenario is the circular scenario where ICT units are still purchased new, but where they're no longer needed, in this case by the NHS Scotland. The ICT products are collected and received for inspection, testing, data wiping, repair, refurbishment, remanufacture, and resale. The ICT products not suitable for resale are disassembled with resale of the components, and the remaining products not suitable for those routes will enter the waste stream. The sensitivity analysis showed for scenario 2 considered the impact of the purchase of remanufactured laptops by boards, so you can see the savings that might accrue from that kind of approach. And since this analysis has been done, remanufactured monitors are now available. So you can see how quickly the market moves on, and we as buyers ought to be keeping up with the moves in the market to get maximum circular outcomes from all of that. I'm hoping that wasn't too long because I've reached the slide. I hope you have too, Spella, where I'm saying thank you, and no doubt there will be questions later on.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I think we should be rehired as a double up for sure. Hopefully that's worked for everyone, but yeah, I think it went quite smooth. Right, we had sort of kind of Q&A opportunity just now. I'm kind of conscious of time. Obviously, I wouldn't want to keep you all too late from what we initially planned. So if it's okay with you, I was just going to check with Claire if she had any reflections on the presentations, just to kind of round up, and then we can move to the interactive session. If that's okay with you, Claire, as well?
Hi, yeah, no, well done, Spella, on sorting out the technical hitches there. This is the first webinar remote webinar that we've tried with the circular office. The previous ones have been face-to-face, so it's good. It's good learning experience for us all, really, as well. And what I found really great about I'm going into the two sort of supplier presentations here is I thought John Ross you did a great presentation there on, because it was a real sort of deep dive into the journey that you've been on over the past 20 years. And I remember when you were at Ogilvy Ross, and like I remember since I worked at Business Environment Partnership, so I remember like the whole relationship, like the whole journey that you've been on since you started. Very, very interesting to see how that's evolved over time, and how as a circular supplier you've changed and been very innovative and flexible. And I think that's one of the key things about being a circular supplier, is that you're able to be innovative and flexible and move with the times. And I really liked your reflections as well, looking at, with the impact of coronavirus and what happens next, because I know that that's an area that the government are looking at, a lot of businesses are looking at, is the Green Recovery Plan, and how do we recover from this current situation. So I thought it was a really, really good overview, and some really great information in there about the costings as well. And Sam, I thought for the MDG group, I thought that was a really, really good kind of like introductory journey of, becoming a circular office. So like right from the start, going through the whole action plan. And I guess that leads it quite nicely into like the end segment. So I'll come back and refer to yours at the end, because actually what you showed was like an illustration of a kind of circular action plan, which is one of the things that people are doing as the next stage in this workshop series, are like developing action plans for their own organizations. And we'll come back and talk about that, and talk about the usefulness of that for this group, and whether there could be other areas you can focus on instead, or yeah. So that was my kind of observations on it. I thought they were both fantastic, and Barbara, really great as well to go through all the different areas of circular procurement, and that kind of focus on the very, very beginning in the planning stages, and how important it is to talk to your suppliers and work with them to develop a solution right from the very, very start, before you even started to think about your tender. So that was kind of an overview. We should go probably into the next bit with the circular economy innovation cards, and then we can always kind of have like a bit at the end and go through like questions as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just thought it would kind of make most sense.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to kind of reflect on
yeah. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, so we'll move into the interactive part of the workshop, where we get you guys to have a think about from what you've sort of learned in the presentations, and sort of in general about the opportunities that already exist, or potentially you could identify in your own organizations. I'll pass on to Vaso, who will introduce you to the activity and what's required of you.
Hi, everyone. So this will be just a short kind of interactive session. It's the first time that we will be using this tool. It's our ideas deck. It's the first time that we will be using it in this format online. So if you go to the chat box, you will see that I have sent over, okay, Stella has sent over a link. And if you follow that link, I will share my screen just now, so you will be able to see it on my screen as well. Shift screen. Right, so hopefully now you can all see my screen.
Yep.
So very simple, these are just some cards that we have. They're in pairs of 2. The first page that you will see is a question, like what if hiring was more desirable than buying? And then it has a bit of an elaboration of the question. So could hiring your product deliver a better outcome? Could you access better products at a lower price? Would you value the flexibility and choice that comes with hiring instead of purchasing? And then the next card will be an actual example of an existing business that does that. In our case, it is a Zipcar, where you can rent a car by the hour instead of owning a car that sits unused 90% of the time. So as you go through the cards, you will see that there's a lot of examples. The cards that are in red mostly focus on products. The ones that are in yellow, they focus on business models. And lastly, the blue ones are mostly about systemic changes. Whoever is working in a big organization with a big office is probably going to benefit from the blue ones more, but there's a lot of good ideas in the red ones and the yellow. So we've got about 10 minutes for this activity. If you can go through the cards and at the same time use the chat box to just say a couple of words about your business or organization, and A, what things you're already doing, and B, what ideas you have for implementing in the future, ideas that have to do with circularity. That would be fantastic, and we can get back to them after the end of this activity. So we have about 10 minutes for this. It should be about 3:45 when we stop.
So stop sharing your screen. I'll put the slide back on with the instructions for sort of background.
Absolutely. So you should all have the link now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then you can see Spella's screen with the instructions. So yeah, that's it. Just use the chat box. Me, Spella, Claire, we're all available for questions. So yeah. So by now you must have seen some of the pages. Let me know if you need any more time, but you really don't have to go through a lot of them, especially since most of you are quite well acquainted with circular economy, as per the results of the poll. So I can start answering the chat if that helps. So I'm going to answer first verbally. So I work with the Chamber of Commerce in Dundee, and some of the things that are already being implemented is sharing of equipment, digitalization, and reduction in single-use items, but not complete elimination. So what we have in the papers next is just to completely eliminate single-use items, even if they are compostable, because that is definitely not the preferred option if you can have reuse as an option. And the other thing that we are aiming to do is reduce food waste from our events, equally important. And lastly, when we update our office equipment, to send our old equipment to the WE centers that are around the area so they can be repurposed. So that is basically what we're looking for. It's not something that has to be very detailed. So if you prefer to speak instead of writing, that's also fine as well. Just hit us with some input.
Yeah, what we plan to do is obviously kind of summarize people's comments, or as Vasa mentioned, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and chat to everyone too. And we were going to just sort of put them on a virtual whiteboard as a kind of summary of this activity, if that's what would be good for everyone. Let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe everyone's too busy reading the cards.
It's a very good answer, Marilyn, and I think it's something that a lot of people overlook, the fact that there's already systems in place to become completely digital. And I actually think that this push from the lockdown measures has made us experiment much more with this. And I think that after the end of the lockdown, some businesses are going to keep them, hopefully. Paper is a huge waste.
Okay, so obviously, you know, we are running this type of activity online for the first time, and we weren't sure if it's going to work or not. But the last thing we want to do is just sort of, you know, keep a deathly silence to everyone. And there's been a lot of interesting discussion going on in the chat box. So I was wondering, Claire, maybe if you'd like to just briefly summarise what you've been chatting to Joel about. And Joel, you're welcome to pop in as well. It's been really, you know, just good to see what you guys have been discussing around the different, you know, what the government is doing on the kind of green recovery and the recovery group that they're forming, and what could or should come out of that. Maybe just to keep discussion going.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, yeah, John, that is a good point. I was just thinking about that, John raised the point that, you know, one of the biggest challenges over the past 20 years is the preference for government and NGOs to get advice from academics, as opposed to people who are actually running the business, the circular businesses, and how do the suppliers get involved. I think it's a really good point, and we'll feed that back to our head of department, who I think is involved in the policy and research team. Will feed that back to them, because I think, yeah, it's very true, actually. They need to also look at people who are running circular businesses right now and what the opportunities represent. Yeah.
With
recovery, not to, you know, to include circular economy as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because the CE bill obviously has kind of been, consultations
Yeah.
have been postponed, which is understandable in the situation we're in, but it's a bit, yeah, it shouldn't be falling short either as such, because this is now an even bigger opportunity, I suppose, than before potentially. Right, I think maybe we'll just move on from this, unless anyone's got any other comments. Obviously, these cards are there as a resource for you. You know, go ahead if you like after this. It's included in the presentation as well, which will be shared. So, oh, we've got something from Irina. Asking about one of the cards where it's asking what if waste was illegal, because obviously quite an ongoing thing for Scottish local authorities, where we had a planned ban for biodegradable waste for landfill. Obviously that's been postponed now to, I want to say, 2025, if I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And therefore there's some changes being sort of made in development of different facilities like waste to energy plant in Aberdeenshire Grampian region. But yeah, no, you're right, Irina. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and comment any further on this, but just this morning we had an interesting kind of sharing session internally where discussion around obviously with COVID-19 impacting waste and recycling in local authorities in general, and you'll all be aware that the household waste recycle centres have had to close, and there's been a lot obviously in the news around this, and people sort of, you know, just going and dropping their waste outside the gates, which is really not what anyone should be doing. Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges even before COVID-19, with obviously this ban, the delay in the ban was announced before that, but now even more so. So it's yeah, there's a lot going on, I think, in the background in terms of sort of Scottish Government instructing Zero Waste Scotland for support, as well as SEPA, and it seems that south of the border there's slightly different messaging coming out from DEFRA, but you know, our focus is obviously on Scotland, so we'll see if maybe that aligns in time. It would make sense. Okay. Keep the discussion going, guys. Please do. Obviously, that will all be recorded as well. But we'll move on to our last segment of the workshop, where Claire sort of briefly mentioned that before about how you can think of putting to some action, obviously with our support through this community of practice, as well as with Circular Tayside, of course. So I'll pass on to Claire to just briefly discuss what support there is and what our plans for community practice are, with your input, of course, and what this action plan, which I'll put on screen so you can see as well what we mean. So pass on to Claire.
Hi, yeah, so the idea for the Circular Office set of workshops actually came from business in the community who are running these coaching cohorts of workshops down south. They're running a series in Leeds at the moment, and I think they're running one in Cambridge as well. Now they've got a big sort of business membership network of quite large kind of non-SMEs as well as SMEs. But their way that they're running it is the next one in the series is kind of focusing internally on developing an action plan with the organisations that are coming along to workshops, which I think would be very useful for some people if you're just starting on that journey and you're looking internally at your own organisation and how to make it more circular. So absolutely, I think there's a role there. They've also got a directory of circular office solutions providers, which again, I'm sort of starting to expand that to include Scottish ones as well. But the idea behind that is that they then help to link up the buyers. Say for example, it's Clydesdale Bank. They link them up with potential suppliers of, say, furniture, IT, etc., to talk through, to start this, facilitate this early market engagement discussion. And with this group, I'm just sort of wondering, you know, what would be of most benefit, and do put in the chat box as well, but what do you see as being the key benefit of having short webinar sessions where you're hearing from local circular suppliers, and you're also hearing a bit about, how the principles of circular procurement and what to do, and, thinking about it. What would be the next step for you? Is it, for some of you, it might be developing your own plan, going away and coming back and discussing it. But for others, it might be more opportunities to connect with buyers. So more of a kind of marketplace opportunity to build up those local connections. And I think, Joel, you raised this in the chat as well, which I thought was a really good point, is how do we stimulate those kind of local purchasing solutions? So how do we stimulate people to buy from circular suppliers, people who are developing circular products and services, for example, in the Tayside area? What's the best way that we could help that engagement to happen? So I think that's my question is, would you benefit more from an action plan, depending on who you are, or would you benefit more from kind of helping to facilitate a bit of a marketplace, to meet up with buyers and to be able to develop some relationships from that?
Yeah, Joel commented again.
Yeah.
Good to have a session focused around particular problems or projects that then you can gather around a common problem.
Okay.
Different organisations in different sectors, but we all experience the same problems more or less. So
yeah,
that would be good. And I suppose, I don't know how you feel, Joel. Obviously, you're kind of engaged with us already.
Yeah, you're going on that journey or in the moment. Yeah.
I think maybe an action plan, as it is now, or we could sort of, amend or sort of update it in whichever would fit the group most. But I think that might help to identify the common problems. If people like to participate further, would be willing to fill it in. It's not, it's maybe about, I think, 4 landscape pages. So it's not a massive, huge task to do. It's basically just ticking the boxes, just roughly kind of building a picture around your own organisation and opportunities and barriers that exist. So
yeah,
I think that could help. And obviously, as we move through this lockdown, we might well likely have another session, obviously, online to keep the momentum going. But in the future, of course, we'd be keen to meet you face to face as well. But we'll just need to sort of adapt as we go along, of course. And Joel's got more great suggestions. So an example, how to make our upcoming office move more circular, or something like how to design a new building to be more circular and improve connections with the local supply chain. So yeah, I think that they're brilliant. So it's almost maybe, did you have in mind like a kind of a theme, like a thematic sort of workshop, kind of present a question and work out the best solutions for it together.
John's got one there as well. It's a really interesting one, John, that you've got an outline agreement with Perth and Kinross for a circular office exhibition in Perth. I mean, yeah, that would be really good, because that helps to visualize it for people, what it could look like. People really, and we have quite a lot of suppliers across Scotland who could contribute to that. Sofa for Life, for example, that, kind of design a completely circular sofa that goes into like office and homes. But there's a number of different suppliers. That sounds really great. Yeah, absolutely, we could get involved with that. Yeah, that does sound fantastic. Yeah.
That would be fantastic, John. I would be very happy to promote it in the local area and try to get as much kind of awareness about it as possible. It's really good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, the great thing, because this is only the 3rd one that we've had, these circular office ones, we've found out all sorts of really useful things, both from businesses who are doing developing circular products and services and offering them, that are having the opportunity to speak about it and raise awareness of it, but also finding about new projects and initiatives that are going on. So the feedback we got from the Edinburgh group is they quite like to have these kind of, maybe every couple of months, just a little like 2-hour session or 1.5 hours on different topic areas, just to keep in touch and keep generating ideas. And then this idea of the action plan is something they could look at in their own organisation. And maybe, as Joel was saying, when they fill in the action plan for themselves, they might identify that they've got an issue. For example, ICT, they want to lease it, but it's too expensive, or, you know, there might be some issues. And if they document them, maybe we could look at that as an issue, you know. So I think the action plan is maybe quite a useful thing to go back to document some issues, to talk about themselves. But I think the good thing is, like, being able to provide an opportunity for people to meet and speak.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll check the action plan with the resources afterwards, and maybe, you know, just sort of, I suppose, a call to action to just let us know if you'd like to, you know, kind of be engaged with us for the next workshop, and we can sort of plan it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John's just inviting everyone to the production facility, obviously, once we're able to travel again. Yep, count us in as well, John. Thanks. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. You know, hopefully, yeah, we can sort of plan something next after this. But to finish off, I'll just pass over to Asa for a quick sort of ending, just to remind everyone of the support available through Circular Tayside. And so this is a kind of regional community of practice we're trying to launch.
Thanks, Bella. So I'm going to share my screen again. A lot of you already know me. I'm not going to do an introduction of Circular Tayside per se. I'm just going to show 4 very small slides. If it lets me start, there we go. So I work with businesses, academia, and local authorities. I'm open for one-to-one meetings to discuss anything that has to do with circularity, no matter where your organization is. We run regional workshops on food waste, the circular office, circular construction, innovation, and many others. We're kind of developing those. So if you have any specific kind of things that you want to examine, please let me know, and we can see if they would fit in one of the workshops. I also inform organizations about the Zero Waste Scotland support that spans from business support and kind of workshops all the way to grant funding of up to £1 million for innovative ideas. And we also promote the circular businesses in the area on our social media and on the Chamber social media. I work with the Dundee and Angus and Perthshire Chamber of Commerce. So we kind of try to increase the awareness of circularity. Part of that is our map. If you're already doing things, circular things, they don't have to be, you know, great and the world altering. They can be very small things that you're doing in your organization. We would love to know about them and put them on our map with a small description of what you're doing. We would also really like to have you in our Be Inspired section. You can see we have anything from a deposit return scheme with cups all the way to secondhand kind of organizations, hotels, zero waste shops, pretty much anything that has zero waste or reduced waste as part of their ethos. And lastly, if you're already well on your way for circular economy and you are actively working on it within your organization, please let me know and we can discuss about the Circular Tayside Ambassadors Group that we meet quarterly and we discuss specific sectors and how to increase circularity in those. Here you can see some of them, but I think we're up to 24, 25 ambassadors, and our next meeting is in June. So this is by no means a complete overview of the Circular Tayside project, but you'll have my contact details and please don't hesitate to contact me about anything. Thank you. Shall stop sharing now. There we go.
Thank you. That was really, really good.
So any last questions or comments, anyone? You also have our contact details if you think of anything later. However, if everyone is okay with it, I think we have reached the end of our workshop. Oh, lovely. Thank you.
And we'd appreciate any feedback. We've obviously got all the contact details for people to email everyone, and appreciate any feedback on forming the next session and when that might be suit everybody, whether we do one in a short one in June, for example, online again, and the content of that be good. We'll send out the action plan as well for people to look at and think about. But absolutely, let's keep the interaction going as well. This will be recorded as well, so it will be available for others to see and look at as well. Yeah. Spella, you're muted.
I was just saying, ironically, we welcome feedback on general delivery, and I forgot to unmute myself. Because obviously this is, you know, like for most of us, we're adjusting on delivering these things online. So, you know, very much let us know how it went or what we should or shouldn't be doing more of. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for coming.